Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about why Dungeons and Dragons has become the most valuable secular thing on the planet. The reason why is because it has created an omega discipline. Dungeons and Dragons, all by itself, with no help from any other product on the planet, no help from any other movement, no help from any other human activity, has created the first omega discipline. So let's start talking about this. Okay, so let's talk about disciplines, right? Let's name two disciplines, pharmacology and painting, okay? So, and actually we'll do painting and pharmacology in that order. So pharmacology is a discipline, okay? I'm sorry, painting is a discipline. A sub-discipline of painting is specifically watercolors, okay? So you could be so your sub-discipline as a professional, right, can be watercolors. Your discipline can be painting. And then that discipline goes into a prime discipline. There are only two prime disciplines art and science. Now let's talk about pharmacology. Pharmacology is a discipline, okay? Endogenous medicine is a sub-discipline, right? So you could be a professional and you can have endogenous medicine as your sub-discipline, pharmacology as your discipline, and pharmacology fits neatly into science discipline, into the science prime discipline. There are only two prime disciplines, art and science. Every single discipline ever created by humanity falls into one of these prime discipline buckets, okay? Here's what's interesting. Dungeons and Dragons created an omega discipline. It created a level above art and science, and that is narrative. Dungeons and Dragons, in 1974, Gary Gygax created Dungeons and Dragons. He fundamentally changed narrative forever for all humans, right? Before Dungeons and Dragons, some schmuck author would write some 300 pages of crap, shove it out, right, and say, hey, experiencer, read this stuff. Do you have opinions about it? Would you like the story to change? You can go kick rocks, right? Take a long walk off a short pier. I could care less. Eat the pablum I just served you. Gary changed it forever. He's like, hey, here's the artist. They set up the structure, right? They put up the infrastructure of the narrative. You, the experiencer, hear every word they're saying. Word by word, sentence by sentence, you can change it midstream. You don't like the story? You tell the dungeon master, the artist, how to change it. You're the dragon player. You're the experiencer. You can change it for any reason you want. You can interrupt the story and have it go in a new direction that you like better than the direction it was going before. And both the artist and the experiencer are both going to be interrupted by fate. Neither one of them has the right or privilege any longer, right, to tell unrealistic stories. Life has randomness, and so will every story told from 1974 beyond that matters. The artist will present, the experiencer will adjust, and fate will control portions of the narrative for both the artist and the experiencer. And when he dropped this down, he made every author a sad sack relic. Shakespeare means nothing now. The greatest stories are being told at Dungeons and Dragons tables, right? Honestly, I loved what he did. I've read some of his work. He had some skill, right? But everything he's done has been surpassed by every engaged dungeon master who's told a story ever since, because these stories are simply fundamentally more valuable, right? Now, what's interesting is Dungeons and Dragons took narrative and showed to the world, oh, hey, your prime bucket art is cute. Your prime bucket science is cute. Guess what? If you don't have a narrative, nothing you do matters, right? And I think artists understood this before scientists, right? So artists was like, okay, I can splat some crayons on that canvas, but if it doesn't tell a story, it's worthless. Artists kind of always knew this, right? But the reality is, narrative is the omega discipline. And Dungeons and Dragons made it the omega discipline. It is above art, right? And both art and science now fit into this narrative bucket. Oh, Scott, Narrative doesn't have anything to do with science, you ridiculous fool. Have you been paying attention to the last year, to the last 2 years? Every scientist in the world realized you can do your little experiments, right? You can do sound, incredibly valuable science. You can get your data back. Your data can be pure and it can be true. If you can't put it into a narrative that the receiver trusts you and is compelled by the story you told with your scientific data, then your science is worthless. It means nothing and it will be ignored by the world. Narrative is the omega discipline. Dungeons and Dragons put it there. And whether you are an artist or a scientist, if you can't tell a story with your content is useless, and you can throw it in a fire and it can turn to ash, because the ash will be more valuable than what you had. Without narrative, anything an artist does, anything a scientist does, is utterly worthless. All that is my opinion on how Dungeons and Dragons came to be the most valuable secular object in the world. I'm eager to hear your humble opinion. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.